Welcome in, everybody, to the Full-Time Fantasy Podcast, powered by Full-Time Fantasy and the FFWC. I am your co-host, Billy Muzio, and with me, as always, Jody Smith. We are going to be talking about NFL predictions tonight, but before we do so, we were talking about off-air, the Packy one-chip challenge. Jody, you just said that you bought 3. You want to give them to your fiance's kids. And these are older kids, folks, not like little kids. So we're not doing any child abuse over here. We're just talking about Packy one-chip challenges with teenagers.
Right. They're 17-year-old identical twins, so they're perfectly capable of making their own decisions and whatnot. But yeah, I thought it would be pretty fun because I think they'd be willing to do it, but I would be scared if we did do it if they were able to last longer than I could, because I like spicy foods, but generally like a salsa that is labeled as hot is a bit much for me. Like I can handle medium all right. And I like a good kick. I like to put hot sauce on foods and whatnot. But when you label things as hot, with the red lid or the red jar you get off the grocery aisle, I typically find that a little difficult to handle. And you're talking probably, just 10,000 Scoville units, or I don't even know if it's that much. These chips are like 1.5 million or something like that. I mean, it was like $6.50 or whatever for one chip. But, I'm sure we've all seen the viral videos of people just absolutely losing it and all that. And I thought it would be an interesting test. Well, I got her permission. I said, hey, let's get the boys to do that. And she was like, that's all you, because Denise, my fiance, she cannot handle any spice of any sort. She is like complete lightweight. So, I set out jokingly that I bought the 3rd chip for her. She's like, yeah, okay. She said she'd try it if I got a tattoo. And I was like, okay, well, that ain't happening. So, but yeah, I mean, I don't know that I've seen the videos and there's people that have been able to power through it or whatnot. But, apparently the official rules are you're supposed to go like, I don't know, up to an hour without drinking anything to really complete it. But Billy, even you couldn't do that, right?
Yeah, I made it like 3 minutes, and it got noticeably hot. I really like spicy food. I ate that one-chip challenge. It actually tells you to wear a glove when you pull it out of the bag because the oils in the chip are that hot. And so I went out, I grabbed the white glove. It was Michael Jackson in it, right? Mm-hmm. I opened up the bag. Right when you open it, it smells noticeably hot. That Packy chip is hot. It really is. And I can eat ghost pepper, in Asian foods. I can eat habaneros just off the vine. Like, I like spicy foods, really like spicy foods. You go to Thai foods, they ask you how hot. I usually order the hottest food. And this thing was hot. I got about, first I ate it, mouth-wise, didn't feel the heat. A slow burn starts coming. And you get in about a minute, 2 minutes, and you start feeling the heat. A little bit in your mouth. If you can handle heat, it's a little bit. If you can't handle heat, it's going to burn the shit out of your mouth. And then where you feel it is it's coming down the intestine tract. And that's where it starts burning. And that's where it's you can't really control that. Breathing, you can do different breathing techniques and stuff to get over hot foods, but when it starts burning the intestines, like I said, I got about minute 3 in, and I was like, man, I need to cool down my intestines. Like, this is going to eat my intestine lining, as I thought it was going to do. So I go to the fridge. I had like a pint of gelato, and I'm eating I ate like a half a pint of gelato and a cup of milk, and it settled down. And then, of course, the next day, you get to play Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, and sit down and enjoy the aftermath of it on the second day. But it's definitely fun. I think if your fiance's kids agree to it, I think you need to just hide it in a bowl of chips watching a football game. Like, just let them like run into it just randomly, like unexpected, and just I think it'd be hilarious. Might be a little cruel, but I think it'd be hilarious.
Yeah, I must say I kind of want to keep getting invited over. That may not get it. If they're willing participants in a challenge, like if I offer them cash, I bet you they'll go for it. And that feels like less guilty with what the potential aftermath could be. I don't know.
Throw like $50 down if they can make it the entire challenge without drinking anything. And I probably not. No, I don't think it's an hour. I think it's like I want to say it's like 5 or 10 minutes. It's not like a real long time. I might be
Sounds
wrong
right.
here because it's been a couple years since I tried these, because we got like a pallet of these things in at my store, and it was like we had them in for like $3.99, but at one point they were going for like $20 a chip on eBay. And
Yeah.
so it was a crazy good deal. They actually are flying out of here. All the college kids came in and were buying them. You know, you had people just coming in to buy them just to try them. And it's, I mean, the box is literally like it's the shape of like a
Yeah,
coffin and a skull.
yeah, coffin. Yeah, exactly.
So it's hot as hell, but it's definitely definitely a fun time. Definitely make it a game. It's going to be a fun time. Well, let's jump in. Talk about hot. Let's talk about some hot predictions here for 2022. Let's start with the AFC East. Let's talk about who's going to win each conference. Talk about the number one team, the last place team, who may be pushing for the number one spot, but is going to finish number two. Talk about maybe playoff implications. So let's talk AFC East to start. We have the New York Jets with the Buffalo Bills, Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots. I think it's safe to say everyone expects the Buffalo Bills to win this conference. Who do you think is going to be second? Maybe surprise in this conference. Is it going to be the Dolphins? Is it going to be New England? And who's coming in last?
Well, you know me, I've been skeptical of Miami's offense, but still, I mean, this is a pretty talented team overall, and I don't see either one of the other teams being able to step up. What's kind of interesting to me is the Patriots. I don't know where to come off on the Patriots because generally, you know, you're always going to give them 3 or 4 extra wins they don't get because of Bill Belichick. But then you read all the shenanigans. He's playing with his coordinators. He's not giving them titles because he wants their previous employers to keep paying them. And then they also, by not calling them coordinators, they don't actually have to talk to the media. So it all feels like it's just more of this, you know, kind of garbage that we see out of there all the time. But overall, you know, you got some concerns. The team offense has looked bad, you know, throughout the summer. The only thing is, as much as I'd like to be bold and think that the Jets, who, you know, I feel like are maybe kind of rebuilding things correctly, trying to build from the trenches, and they have some interesting pieces in place. You know, I hate to say this, but I feel like if Joe Flacco was their starter, I actually would be more likely to say that New York can sneak up and be, you know, the third team in this division. But I don't believe that's what's going to happen. So, you know, it seems like the chalk pick here to say Buffalo, Miami, New England, New York, but it's hard to really envision it kind of falling out any other way.
So that's exactly what the sportsbook have it. So DK Sportsbooks has Buffalo Bills -240, Miami Dolphins at +475, Patriots at +500. And I think we can all agree that those two are very close, and it could go either way between Miami or New England. I think that the talent that Miami added this year, I think that gives them the extra edge. We're hearing reports out of camp that Mac Jones just haven't made the leaps that they expected here in year 2 so far. But who knows? It could be just the Patriots doing Patriots things and keeping things hush-hush. And we shall see once games start here next week. But I agree with you. Buffalo is going to be winning this division, in my opinion. Miami second, New England third, and the Jets a distant fourth. Next up division we have is the NFC East. Let's go ahead and do Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Cowboys, Washington Commanders, and the New York Giants.
You know what? I've been thinking about this division because this is the one that every year we have a new team on top, and it, you know, there's that narrative that there's a fourth place team that comes back and wins every year. I like the Eagles actually to take the NFC East this year. I like some of the changes they made on offense. They've improved defensively and some of the talent they've brought in. It feels like earlier this summer, I wasn't sure about Jalen Hurts, Billy. You know, I talked a lot of times about, you know, I don't know and all that. But, you know, at this point, I've come around. I've got him in my, you know, top 6 now, along with just about everybody else. So I like the Eagles. And then you look at Dallas, who easily won this division last year. But, you know, again, this is the division where everyone keeps swapping. And Dallas, I mean, look at their offensive line just keeps getting decimated. There's no way that defense is going to be able to create as much havoc and as many turnovers and whatnot as they had last year. Gosh, you know, it wouldn't surprise me actually to see Washington be able to, you know, be competitive in this division. Carson Wentz, poor guy, he's much maligned, in particular by the fantasy football community, but he's not as bad, I don't believe. The exception of last year when they needed him against the Jacksonville when he was with the Colts. But other than that, I don't think he's near as bad. And then Giants, I mean, it's a comfortable fourth place for the Giants. Another team, though, that is looking to rebuild and is starting things over with a brand new regime. And I think they're going to throw their quarterback out there. And, clearly they've already, made the smart decision and declined to extend him. So they'll give him 1 year. And if he doesn't cut it, then, they'll start over next year. And what's a good quarterback class with their own guy.
Yeah, we agree on this division. Eagles, I think, took such a big step forward this year with the acquisition of AJ Brown, and they just made some very savvy moves. I think the Eagles are pretty good favorites, although Vegas, or I should say DK Sportsbook, have them both the Eagles and Cowboys at plus 150. I definitely lean Eagles here, and I agree with you. I think the Washington Commanders can be sneaky good this year. People really hate on Carson Wentz, and I just, there was a time in which Carson Wentz was probably the front runner for MVP prior to that ACL injury he had, and it just hasn't been quite the same for him, but he does not have a problem pushing the ball down the field, which I think is really going to benefit Terry McLaurin. They went out and get Jahan Dotson here. Curtis Samuel is probably going to be healthy. They have Logan Thomas coming back. Gibson's going to be in the backfield. It's unfortunate what happened to Brian Robinson, but from a fantasy perspective, it kind of unmuddies the waters. So they definitely have the playmakers to surprise in this division. And I think that when you look at things, the Washington Commanders could sneak into second in this division. I think it's be probably kind of a long shot for them to finish, as division winners. I definitely think the Eagles have an upper hand there, but I would not be surprised to see Washington actually finish ahead of Dallas this year. We both agree Giants are just kind of, last place in this division, and in my opinion, don't really have a shot to finish much better than third. So, if I'm going to bet here, I'm definitely betting on the Eagles at the plus 150, and I would maybe even take a stab at Washington at plus 500 to get more squeeze for the juice. So, like a lot, I think this is one of the tougher divisions to kind of predict.
Every year, yeah.
Every year. And then this year in particular, probably one of the toughest divisions to predict is who we're going to talk about next. And that's going to be the AFC West. Everybody wants a piece of the AFC West when it comes to fantasy football. When it comes to betting lines, though, it makes it a lot more difficult to bet on. So we have the Kansas City Chiefs, we have the LA Chargers, we have the Denver Broncos, and we have the Las Vegas Raiders. I disagree with the lines here. I want to see what your take is, because I think this is probably one that we can really debate. There's a lot of different arguments that could be made for each one of these teams. Every team has gone out and made major adjustments to their roster on offense and on the defense side of the ball. So what's your take on the AFC West? Who is going to finish as the division winner? Who's going to come in last? And the other caveat, do all four of these teams make the playoffs?
No, I think the division could produce 3 playoff teams, but I don't view the Raiders as a playoff contender. This is a team that, although they snuck in last year, and I like the addition of Devontae Adams, but this is a team that's their offensive line is bad. Their secondary is atrocious. I don't see how they're going to, it wouldn't surprise me to see the Raiders and, great fan base, and I'm not trying to rile anyone up, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them win 0, maybe 1 division game this year, because I feel like the other 3 teams are just head and shoulders above them. That's just my personal view, and maybe it's skewed towards fantasy because other than Devontae Adams, there's not really a player on the Raiders that I'm all that excited about. I mean, we talked about Hunter Renfrow yesterday. I feel like he's a value, but, I'm not a Derek Carr a fantasy fan so much as I think he's better as a real-life quarterback. But to me, the Raiders are comfortably in last place, and to me, and I think the Chiefs are actually pretty much stuck in third place, from my eyes, as a team that's completely in transition now on the offensive side of the ball. So I have a lot of confidence in Andy Reid and, of course, Patrick Mahomes, but it's still the talent around them. Well, we still don't know who's going to lead the team in carries and backfield touches. And then, without Tyreek Hill, any number of guys could step and be interesting pieces there. So it's a little risky for me with the Chiefs. Although I do think that Reed is a good enough coach and Mahomes is definitely a good enough quarterback to keep them in contentions. But it's really, really close for me, but I would probably forced to pick right now. I probably would pick Denver, maybe in a tie situation or maybe a one-game lead over LA to win a division. I really like what Russell Wilson brings to that team, and with the Chargers, again, you have to love all the offensive pieces, and some of the additions they made on the other side of the ball. Via the draft and via free agency. Interesting, but it's just an issue of me. Like I said, it's just really close between them. I mean, do you have a strong feeling of Chargers? I think you talked about the Chargers before.
Yeah, I like the Chargers to win this division. I just like what they did on the defensive side of the ball. I think it's going to really help inside this division. We talked about the Chiefs and losing, a lot of their different weapons this year. They're going to have some dysfunction or some timing concerns on the offensive side of the ball. I just don't think they're going to have enough to win this. This is the toughest division of football now, in my opinion.
Sure.
Before it was my Niners in the NFC West, but now it's the AFC West. So I did a joke on Twitter saying that Russell Wilson left the toughest division of football and then joined the toughest division of football. And that's exactly what happened. And so I think for me, Chargers, I would say, are going to be first in the division. I'm going to say Broncos or Chiefs. That's where I kind of go back and forth, is the Broncos or the Chiefs, because Russell Wilson's also on a new team, learning a new system, a new coach. Again, could have some timing concerns, some trust concerns. So I'm going to say Chargers. I'm going to say Chiefs probably, then Broncos, but I think that can go either way. And then I'm going to say Raiders last. So Vegas has it. Chiefs
all
at
all three of those teams have over under 10.5.
Yeah, and so Vegas has Chiefs at plus 175, Chargers at plus 220, Broncos at plus 260, Vegas at plus 650. I actually took a $10 bet in the beginning of the season, which was plus 2,000, so it pays out $210 for all four teams to make the playoffs. I figured it was worth the gamble. At least gives me something to root for in this division outside of my fantasy team. So again, I think it's probably one of the toughest divisions this year to definitely predict. But I definitely think it can go either way. Next we have is the AFC South. We have the Colts, the Titans, the Jaguars, and the Texans. I like the Colts this year. Who do you like, though, inside this division?
Oh, easy. Like right now, you're looking at Indy with a 9.5 over under. To me, that's one of the most appealing over bets that's on the board right now, because I can't understate, as much as we don't want to rag on Carson Wentz, I feel like Matt Ryan's a pretty significant upgrade for this offense and what he can and what he will be asked to do. I think that they're going to kind of unleash things a little bit because he'll earn the trust and the coach has been able to be a bit of a quarterback whisperer for quite a while. So to me, it's a very, very easy pick for the Colts. And I know Derrick Henry's back, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Titans kind of struggle this year. It's kind of interesting shipping off A.J. Brown, and the early narrative was, they just got his clone in Treylon Burks, and I don't want to buy too much into it because last year at this time, I'm sure we were all on podcasts listening to how Jamar Chase was couldn't catch and he was going to be a bust, and the Bengals should have taken Penei Sewell on the offensive line, but sure enough, that turned out to be just preseason hyperbole, and maybe it'll be the same situation for the Titans. I feel like the Titans can contend, but they're not a team that I would want to bet that they're going to actually be a playoff contender. They have some easy games in this division, and here's where I come across on the other two teams. So I want to say that the Texans are going to be well coached. I want to say that they're going to play hard for Lovie Smith. They love him, and that they're going to be able to persevere and win some of them games that they gave away last year, whatnot. But there's another part of me that says maybe that's not what they want. I think this is an kind of a status quo year for Houston, to see if Davis Mills really can be the kid that they kind of looked like in spurts last year because to hit a home run with a third round quarterback is something else. But then you just look at the overall, the complete lack of talent. I think that the Texans it's a slow build, just like what the Astros did, half a decade ago, completely tearing it down and bringing in a whole new personnel to fit your system. So Nick Caserio is their general manager. I'm kind of optimistic. So far, it looks like his first draft last year looked decent. And then this year was his first draft with actually a full allotment of picks. So I'm optimistic, slow build, but I'm going to put the Texans in the basement here because there was no team that was mismanaged or undercoached or whatever you want to say last year than the Jaguars. They have some pieces, and this is a team that annually they always give the Texans problems, and those teams typically split back and forth. But I think the Jaguars with Doug Peterson can actually come up and surprise some people this year. I wouldn't be shocked to see Jacksonville maybe get up around 500. I mean, I don't want to say they can win 7 or 8 games, but part of me thinks that maybe in this division, if Tennessee does in fact fall off a little bit, that Jacksonville could win.
Again, Jody,
they could go 4-2 in their division.
Yeah, again, we typically agree on a lot of these lines. I 100% agree. Like I said earlier, I like the Colts. I mean, this is probably one of the best lines that Matt Ryan has had.
9.5 look really good in that division because, I mean, honestly, you can see the Titans, Colts, they go 4-2 in the division, and they've got it made at that point. But 5-1 seems like really feasible that they could sweep the Jags and Texans and split with the Titans, and there you go. You're halfway to the over.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at Matt Ryan, his career, and what he's been able to do, and now he has one of the best offensive lines he's had. He still has some weapons. He's got his number one in Pittman. He's got one of the better running backs that he's had in years. So there's a lot to like about the Colts. Tennessee, I'm not crazy about Tennessee this year. I don't think any of us are. I mean, listen to this depth chart. We got Robert Woods, Treylon Burks, and Nick Westbrook-Akeen at wide receiver. Some might argue that Kyle Phillips right now is the number 3. And then you have Cody Hollister here as the 4th wide receiver. Just Tannehill and Malik Willis at quarterback. Henry, Dontrell Hilliard, Hassan Haskins, and Julius Chestnut, the running back positions, and then tight end, Austin Hooper, Josh Swaim, and then I cannot pronounce this guy's last name or first name, so Konwu Chigozim, or I don't even know how to say it, but
that guy, yeah,
that guy. So I'm just not overly sold on the Titans. Last year, they had the bye in the playoffs, and I think all of us thought it was the weakest round 1 bye that we'd seen in many years from a playoff team. I think the Jaguars could possibly sneak into second in this division, but I'm going to give the Titans a slight edge just because of they have a little bit more. I think the defense is a little better. I think their coach. I think everything has just kind of been there already, right? There's not so many moving pieces in this offense, but the Colts are a clear favorite. I agree with you. Texans in the basement. Vegas agrees with us as well. Colts are -130 to lead this division, so it's the first minus outside of Buffalo that we've seen inside the betting. Tennessee Titans at +175, Jaguars at +750, and Houston, Texas at +3,000. So probably the
to win the division.
Yeah,
that's a monster line. Jeez,
it is a monster line, but it's a very tough feat, I think, for them to even come close to that division, number 1 in the division. Next we have is the NFC North. So we have the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, and the Chicago Bears. This one's interesting. I'm curious to hear your thoughts because I got things a little different than Vegas has them right now.
Well, it's hard to not see, the sandwich part of the division. I mean, I have Green Bay as the favorite, but it's not a real confident favorite, and I have Chicago as an easy 4th place pick. That's they've got the lowest or second lowest win total in the NFC. So, I'm looking. There's 6.5. So there's a couple teams actually behind them there in the NFC, but still, tough division. The Vikings, kind of interesting because you had a team that was, on the cusp at times last year, and you feel like, when the coaching was what they needed, they always seem to come up short and all that. But now with a new regime that apparently wants to put the pedal to the metal. Obviously, clearly, you look at our rankings and our projections. We're all in on Justin Jefferson. We've talked numerous times about Kirk Cousins. Clearly, we're good to go on the Vikings overall as a team, and I view them as being contenders. And now I'm forgetting a team. Bears. Oh, the Lions. So Lions. I talked a couple of times about teams building from the trenches and doing things the right way, and players playing hard for a coach, and that's what you see in Detroit. Really, really interesting. I think some people. I don't know about you, Billy. We'll talk in a second, I guess. Some people are trying to put the Lions as a potential NFC wild card contender or a breakout team or whatnot. And hey, listen, we've seen stranger things happen. And the Packers, you just traded off Devontae Adams. They didn't do much to replace all that production, so it's fair to see Green Bay taking a pretty significant 2 or 3 game drop, which could open things up for Minnesota or Detroit. So this, probably one of the more difficult of the divisions to actually peg all the way through. But I don't come up with a. Man, I want to be kind of bold, not just keep going chalk here. Maybe I can to be bold, I can say that somehow the Vikings come up winning the division, but I can't. I'm just going to go with what I said: Green Bay, Minnesota, Detroit, and then a fairly precipitous drop off to the Bears.
So you have exactly what Vegas has. Green Bay is -190. The Vikings are plus 260.
Like I said, I hate to quit being so chalky, but
Detroit is plus 1,000. Chicago is plus 1,500. I think. So I've been one of the ones who've been saying Detroit has a chance at wild card.
Yeah.
I have a $20 bet on them to win the division. I think it is a bit of a long shot, but at plus 1,000, it was steeper. It was definitely better odds earlier in the season. But a lot has to go right.
You can either bet on the Lions or buy a pack of the Packy chip, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I just think that Green Bay might have a lot of concern. I mean, we look at this wide receiver core, and this is every year we talk about how Green Bay doesn't do anything for Aaron Rodgers in the receiving core, and this might be his worst receiving core that he's ever had. I mean, they've already talked about. We hear about teams doing a running back by committee, and now Green Bay is going wide receiver by committee, which does not bode well for timing, does not bode well for chemistry. If I had to guess here as well, Minnesota has a good shot as well as taking this division, especially with Kevin O'Connell coming over from the Los Angeles Rams. He was the offensive coordinator over there. So I think we can see a little bit more of a pass-heavy offense for the Vikings here in 2022 than we had in years of the past, where they've kind of had the nut run game, should say, for those of you who play poker. So I think there's definitely going to be a change of system in Minnesota. I think it'll bode well for Justin Jefferson. It'll bode well for Thielen and for Irv Smith. But again, Detroit Lions have a pretty solid crew, and we saw what they did down the stretch last year. So I'm gonna go against the grain here. I'm gonna say Minnesota is going to take the division. Green Bay's gonna come in second, but I do think the Lions may surprise people. I'd hope so with my bet, but it's only $20. So I think that it'd be nice to see them. I don't think it's I'm not gonna be confident in the bet, but I'm gonna say Minnesota Vikings win the division here. Next up, we have NFC South division: Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons. You gonna go chalk here again with Buccaneers?
Yeah, you bet on Tom Brady. I mean, I've learned in however many years he's been playing, 22, 23 now, that you don't want to bet against him. And I don't have a ton of confidence in the other 3 teams in this division. Clearly the Falcons are, at the very beginning of a complete teardown and rebuild, so no one realistically expects them to do much this year. There'll be some favorable game scripts, but with Marcus Mariota under center, I don't know that they'll be able to take too much advantage of it. And then we've talked numerous times about how I don't have any confidence in Jameis Winston, of how his fantasy numbers were very hollow last year. All of that 14 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, all that production came in 2 games. He was actually, from a fantasy perspective, he was actually pretty terrible in 3 or 4 of the other 5 games that he played in. And now you're taking Sean Payton away from that, going with Dennis Allen, who again has, I believe, an 8-28 record as a head coach. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Saints. I really don't. Baker Mayfield's probably a pretty significant upgrade for that team for various ways. If he can win over that locker room with his attitude now. I don't know who I was talking to the other day, Billy, if it was you or no, you know what? It was in an Uber when we were at the Expo a few weeks ago. And I was talking to one of the drivers and they were listening to sports radio and we kind of talked about Baker a little bit. And I said that he was like Johnny Manziel, but only at volume 5 or 6. And the guy kind of laughed and said that, that's exactly right. But I feel like I'm not trying to insult Baker Mayfield. I think he's got that moxie, but he's actually, pretty credible NFL quarterback. And I'm really excited actually to see how this week 1 goes between Mayfield playing, the Browns. So that'll be one of the interesting side stories there. So let's not go with chalk here, although, I'm going to pick the Bucks, clearly on the top of the division. But I'm going to pick Carolina to be a surprise number 2 team here. And I'll pick the Saints 3rd, and like I said, the Falcons 4th.
Okay. Slight disagreements. Tampa Bay definitely for me is the chalk number 1 here. Like you said it, don't bet against Tom Brady. I've been telling people to sell him in Dynasty. It seems like for like 8 years now. And so I just stopped commenting on Tom Brady and Dynasty picks anymore. I do like your call on the Carolina Panthers being 2nd. I think that it could definitely happen. I'm going to lean the New Orleans Saints. I like the defense a little bit better. I think that they have some pieces here that are going to click well together. Jameis does scare me. He does scare me. But if Michael Thomas can return to even 75% of what we had seen in the past, I think that he's still going to be pretty dominant in this league.
The pieces are in place for the Saints to be a good team. It's just I can't pick chalk every division. So finally, I'm just taking a stand.
Yeah, and Vegas has it as I have it here: Tampa Bay minus 250, Saints plus 310, Carolina plus 900, and the Falcons in the basement at plus 3,500. So that's a pretty big difference here. Division winner for AFC North Division, we have the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. What's your call here?
Looking at over-unders, it's you have Baltimore 10.5, and you have Cincinnati at 1 game back, and then there's quite a drop-off there. And you know what? That feels about right. In order to avoid saying chalk, I don't really have a strong feeling between, say, Baltimore and Cincinnati. But, so since I feel like they're maybe similarly matched, the Bengals finally invested in that offensive line, which, bodes well for, their offense once again this year. So let's give Cincinnati, I'll pick the Bengals to win this division. And then we'll pick Baltimore in 2nd. Both solid, playoff contenders. I expect they'll both be playing, into January and all that. And then there's a big drop off. Whereas I'd like to see the Browns be contenders because it's been such a sad situation for Browns fans for all these years, and they got a little glimmer of hope here making the playoffs, and now they have to deal with this whole unfortunate mess with Deshaun Watson and all that. But it's hard to have a lot of confidence in Jacoby Brissett. I think he's fine in a temporary fill-in role where your quarterback pulls like Russell Wilson last year, where your quarterback's going to have an injury that's going to keep him out for 3 or 4 starts. And as long as you can maybe dumb down the playbook a little bit and, maybe go with a more ground-heavy offense, I think Jacoby Brissett can fill in for a brief amount of time. And, ground-based offense fits Cleveland well. You've still got 2, maybe even 3 very good running backs back there. But eventually, with at least 11 games under center, it feels like that's going to catch up with Jacoby Brissett. So it feels to me like, Cleveland's going to be a, 5 or 6 win team. I don't see them as legitimate contenders. And Pittsburgh. So let's put the Browns in last place. And Pittsburgh, really, man, this is another situation where Mike Tomlin always gets more out of that team, but we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback, and he still at this point won't announce it yet. So it feels kind of gimmicky, like he won't announce it to the team, or he doesn't want give away anything for week 1 or whatnot. But I have a ton of confidence in that defense and that that whole franchise's love for Mike Tomlin. So I think they're pretty comfortably in third place. But I see that the Steelers have what's their over under 7.5. So that's an easy over for me, simply because if I believe Tomlin's never been under 500 or at
Never.
500 his whole career.
Never.
And you know what? It feels like to me that he'll probably get a little bit more out of that team than a lot of people are thinking. So we can add 2 wins onto that, and there you go. You get them at 9. So maybe he can get them to 9 and 8.
So to clarify, you have Bengals, Ravens, Pittsburgh, then Cleveland.
Correct.
Okay. I like the Bengals at 1, and we both agree here. Vegas has Bengals at 2. So Vegas has Ravens plus 140, Bengals plus 170, Browns plus 380, Pittsburgh plus 1,000. So I have it Bengals, Ravens, Browns, Steelers. Now the question is, if Deshaun Watson, I know he's not, but if he was going to play a full 16, would the Browns be a favorite for you?
Favorite in the
Not
division?
16, not 17.
No,
Yeah, 18.
no, but I think that you put them up there with Deshaun Watson. You put them up there around 10 wins, so they're in contention there. That would be a pretty tough division with Deshaun Watson for 4 games, but it would certainly dim to me the Steelers' odds. Like I said, of maybe contending for that final wild card spot or whatnot. You throw in Deshaun Watson for a couple games and makes things a little more difficult. But that's not. We know now that that's not really going to be an issue until December. So
do the Steelers' offensive line concern you this year, especially the quarterback play? I mean, we have inexperienced quarterbacks. We know Tomlin's never had a losing record, but things seem to be kind of stacking against him.
It feels like that they're leaning towards going with the rookie Kenny Pickett. But Billy, look at it like this: is the combination of Mitchell Trubisky or Kenny Pickett really going to be that much worse than what Ben Roethlisberger was last year? Because Roethlisberger was absolutely just bad last year. He was a shell of his former self, and they still got more out of that team than you would expect. And I know he excelled at getting rid of the ball behind that offensive line, which still shapes up to be one of the more poor units. But I look at it like, can they really be? Are they really going to be that much worse?
I mean, it's possible. Not a single one of their offensive line starters have earned a grade over 65 on the offensive line. I mean, they come in as the 3rd worst offensive line projected for 2022. You have either Trubisky or Pickett or, what happens with Mason Rudolph. I don't know what's going to happen in this quarterback situation. I don't think anybody does. But inexperience at the quarterback position, offensive line woes, Lisfranc Spring for Najee Harris. If Najee goes down, this team is immediately way, way, way worse.
Yeah,
I mean, there's already, and this is one of the reasons why I've been fading Najee, and he's on my fade list over at Full Time Fantasy, was because of this offensive line woes, because of the quarterback uncertainty. They're probably going to load the box up. I have a lot of concerns for the Steelers this year. I don't think Tomlin is going to be able to get over 500 this year. And I know he's done a lot in the past, and I had kind of always been, or I've always thought that Tomlin was a bit overrated. I think they should have had a Super Bowl with the teams that they've had in the past. But then you look at everything that happened with Lev Bell and everything happened with Antonio Brown, and I kind of feel like I underestimated him as a coach, and that he had a better grip on things than I had thought, especially seeing what happened with Antonio Brown after the fact. So I have to say, if they make it there, it's 100% coaching, because I think that this team has a lot of holes and a lot of concerns for 2022. Last division we have are the Rams. So let's go, NFC West. The Rams, the Niners, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. I think we can all agree that the Seahawks are in the basement here, and it's not even close. Question is...
This is your division. Why don't you tell me off the top what you're thinking here? Because I kind of look to you for insight when it comes to the NFC West, because that's your boys over there. So
Yeah, I mean, as much as I want to put the Niners there, I just don't think it's realistic with Trey Lance this year. I think that he's going to need to take some positive steps forward. Now, if he comes out and he's able to run the ball and stay healthy, and he's able to, to get a grip and throw the deep ball and kind of come to fruition, I think that it's a possibility that the Niners could surprise win the division. But I think it would be a surprise for the Niners to win the division. I think that the Rams just have a more sound team right now. They got a better quarterback with Stafford, as long as that elbow doesn't act up. So the Rams, to me, are going to be the favorites in this division. They just have a more sound unit. There's a lot more boom, I think, inside the Niners team, but I think there's a lot more bust as well. So I'm definitely going to say it's going to be Rams, Niners, Cardinals, and then the Seahawks. So it's pretty chalk with Vegas. But I just don't see the Cardinals. If the Cardinals had DeAndre Hopkins all season, you could argue that the Cardinals have a pretty good shot as well to be division winners. But strength of schedule for the Cardinals also gives them kind of the downhand inside this division. So Rams, for me, going to win this division, closely behind them the Niners, as long as Trey Lance can take that step forward. If Lance does not take that step forward, the Cardinals beat the Niners in this division pretty soundly, in my opinion, because I think it's going to break down to that. And I wouldn't be surprised if that does happen, we see Jimmy Garoppolo. That's why in my rankings this week,
I was going to ask you about that, like off the clock, but I know you spent so much time up in the clouds this week that we weren't able to touch base. But yeah, I've been telling people, like, this whole Jimmy Garoppolo re-signing thing, it's not groundbreaking, but to me, it's not good news for Lance, because Lance has looked okay this year, but it feels like like an insurance policy was put into place. And I know that
exactly.
And it feels like if Lance struggles a little bit, or it's not getting the most out of that offense, or he's struggling downfield with the playbook, and he's trying to run too much, or it just feels like if Jimmy comes in, maybe in a relief situation, or maybe Lance tweaks his hammy on the sideline, is out for a while, and Jimmy gets a chance to come in and he brings him to a comeback, and then they say, well, we're going to take it slow with Lance, and we're going to have Jimmy start next week, but Lance is still our starter. And then Garoppolo pulls him to another win. And then at this point, the 49ers are a team that's definitely with their window open to win now.
Correct.
Then you have to wonder. Look, we love the upside of Trey Lance. We've talked numerous times about it. Billy, we selected him as our starter at the Kings Classic. It's an upside play, and that's what it is. It's that risk-reward thing. Trey Lance, clearly, with his rushing ability, he showed last year in fantasy points per game that he has that top 5, top 6 fantasy capabilities. But, as a thrower, and especially to a team that has I would say San Francisco's receiving core is subpar. It's definitely not one of the deeper units in football. He's got quite a bit of downside. So marching forward, I don't know what I'm going to finalize. Our rankings on him, but I want to say that I moved him down from around QB 11 or 12 down to around. Now maybe I'm feeling a little more comfortable taking Kirk Cousins. It just depends on your approach. If you're in an FFWC where you're trying to win the whole show, you take a guy like Trey Lance, because you need that upside. You need that differentiation. You don't need, a lot of us in the fantasy community, and I'm going off on a tangent here. We take this value-based draft approach where we just let value fall to us, and we don't take a lot of wild swings, and we just kind of, let things play out and just take the best available player and don't worry about that kind of stuff. But that's the kind of approach that I tell people, and it's one that I use pretty often. That kind of approach gets you to the playoffs. It can probably make you have a winning season, but that's not necessarily the kind of approach that wins you leagues. It's not the kind of approach that necessarily wins you weeks 14 through 17. And in particular, when you're in a tournament style where you have to win those the cumulative score over those last 3 weeks. So it just depends on your tolerance for risk reward. But that was a long tangent.
I agree with you on the Jimmy G. It does not set up confidence for Trey Lance. And I understand they've become friends and he wants him there as a mentor. But at the same time, Lance is going to be looking over his shoulder. He has a couple of bad games, or maybe he twists an ankle and Jimmy G gets an opportunity.
And if he's legitimately not, it's going to be a narrative he's going to get asked about constantly from the local media, from the national media, from fantasy football on Twitter. It's going to be a constant, it's going to be a constant side issue, whether he wants to be or not, and that's going to go to the coach.
I moved him back in my rankings 3 spots, so he is now behind. You mentioned Kirk Cousins. He's now behind Carr in my rankings, and I actually moved him back behind Matt Ryan, just because I am concerned. I don't think it's unrealistic to think that Jimmy G may start 3 games this year, or maybe even 4. Like it all going to break down to this offensive line, in my opinion. The Niners have a kind of middle of the pack offensive line, maybe slightly above the middle of the pack. But you got Trent Williams, who's a stud. You got Mike McGlinchey, who's going to be good as well. But it breaks down to Aaron Banks, who's going to be playing left guard, and he only played 5 snaps last year as a rookie, just 5. And so I do have some concerns about this offensive line. If they gel well together and they can get things done, I think it's going to be very good for Trey Lance and his success. But if they do not have as good of an offensive line as we're hoping, and Trey Lance if he's pressured more and he starts making errors, it's pretty clear that they're going to be willing to throw in Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, they just gave him the most money as a backup quarterback, and like you said, it's an insurance policy. They have that win now. They have that win now window, and I don't think that Kyle Shanahan is going to sit around and wait for Lance to develop. So I think they have every intention for him to be the starter. They want him to be the starter, and he has the upside to be successful in this league and to come out and be a force to be reckoned with. But I would not be surprised if we see Jimmy Garoppolo at some point this year.
And Billy, you and I can stay, clearly for the record, not just with the Kings Classic, but we want Trey Lance to be great. We want him to come in and be that top 5 kid, because all throughout the whole offseason, you and I were throwing all kinds of darts at Trey Lance, and we talked all the time about look at the rushing upside, and Kyle Shanahan's going to build offense around him and this and that. So this is definitely not us trying to say that we think Jimmy's better and all that. It's concern. You mentioned if Jimmy comes in and takes 3 or 4 starts, well, then clearly there's no way Lance is going to finish the season as QB1. The bigger concern is Jimmy, taking a start in week 2 or 3, and well, maybe that's a little early, but is in the middle of the season or week 5 somewhere in that, is him playing so well that he never gives up the job again, and then you have a mess to deal with next year, because Garoppolo is not going to be back, and then you have a situation where Kyle Shanahan's got to talk his way out of that potential mess again. It's an interesting moment, but I can say for the record, and I think I speak for you, that we want Trey Lance to be badass, because that would be wonderful for not just Kings Classic, but for many of the teams that we've managed to assemble all offseason. And it's just a better story. And it just, whatever you want to say about the downside, Trey Lance has exponentially more upside than Jimmy Garoppolo does.
Yeah, so, very small sample window. So last year we only saw 2 starts. Week 5 versus Arizona, he goes 5 for 29. And it's 15 for 29, sorry. 51.7% completion percentage, only 192 yards, no touchdowns, interception. But this is where the upside pops in. 16 rushing attempts in this game, 89 rushing yards, 5.6 rushing yard average. And then week 17 against Houston, he comes in and goes 16 for 23, so 69.6 completion percentage, 249 yards. He averaged 10.8 yards per attempt in that game, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, then another 8 attempts on the ground for 31 rushing yards. So in his 2 starts, 24 rushing attempts for a little over 100 yards. That's the upside that we keep talking about, Trey Lance.
That sounds like Lamar Jackson type of lines. Maybe not MVP Lamar Jackson, but it sounds like the kind of lines you expect to see out of Baltimore.
And if we can see more of that week 17 versus Houston with him and his passing, he remains the starter and keeps the job. That's what it's going to take, though, for the Niners to win this division. They need him to be able to stay at that kind of constant and play to that level, or else we have the Rams who are going to take off of this division, in my opinion. Well, let's run through. We got 10 more minutes. Let's run through some more fun items. Let's talk about some player futures. Let's talk about, and there's no data. This is just top of the head. whim, no preparation for this. Most passing yards in the league. Who's your favorite for the most passing yards?
Most passing yards. Oh, was Tom Brady's category last year? Let's go with Justin Herbert.
Very well done. Justin Herbert leads Vegas at plus 650. Brady's plus 800. Patrick Mahomes at plus 800. Derek Carr at plus 1,000. How about most passing touchdowns?
Most passing touchdowns. Does Brady have one more year in him? It'd be, Mahomes again feels like he'd be a solid pick here. Let's go with the obvious pick in Josh Allen.
Okay, I'm gonna say I'm gonna go surprise here and go Matt Stafford. I like the addition of Allen Robinson here, but Herbert is the favorite for Vegas plus 550. Josh Allen's the second, 600. Tom Brady is going to be the third at 650. Burrow is fourth at plus 900. Patrick Mahomes plus 900 also tied at fourth, and then Matt Stafford there as well plus 900. How about most rushing yards? Who is going to lead the lead in rushing?
Let's go, man. It's so weird. I've been playing off all these scenarios of how, it's always, in order to get a top 5 fantasy season of a running back, they got to be 27 or younger. And most of the guys that we all have in our top 10 are, age 27 and whatnot. I don't know this. It's hard to go against. It's hard to go against Taylor. I don't want to seem like chalk, but as long as he stays healthy in that offense, it's rare for a guy to. Go back to back like that. So, Taylor maybe wild card. Does Nick Chubb and that offense, with Deshaun Watson, it feels like Nick Chubb could be a sneaky pick to be the kind of guy that could get up there at 1,500 rushing yards. But I don't.
Nick Chubb is mine. I've bet on it the last 3 years and have lost. I'm doing it a fourth time. So I'm going back to the well. It has to be this year.
Let's go bold and pick Travis at the end then.
Okay, so you're going ETN. I'm going to say Nick Chubb. This is my 4th year betting on it. I hope it hits
until you get it right.
Yeah, plus 1,000. I'll probably be even if it hits. So mine's Nick Chubb. Vegas has JT at plus 450, Derrick Henry at plus 650, Nick Chubb at plus 1,000, and Dalvin Cook at plus 1,000. So those are tied for third, and then Najee at fourth at plus 1,400.
Yeah, Dalvin Cook. That would have been a good one.
Next one we have is most rushing touchdowns.
Again, if Taylor's healthy, it's hard to go against him. But I would have said James Conner last year and gotten it right. But I loved Conner last year. If he stays healthy, it feels like a category that Derrick Henry could have one more year up there near the top. So let's go with him.
Okay, I'm gonna say. Oh man, this one's tough for me. Mm-hmm. I'm probably gonna say John Taylor. I think I still think he's gonna be a goal line monster. So I'm gonna go chalk here. JT.
Oh yeah, that's the obvious pick. I'm just trying to you know what I'm saying. I'm trying not to be because
definitely think
all of our division picks are just so chalky. So it's like we need to do something a little different here.
Yeah, I think Henry's in the mix there. I could also see Dalvin Cook being in the mix here, who's plus 1,000, who's going to be fourth down on the list. So definitely some opportunity. And I would even like to say maybe Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be way down the list here at plus 1,800, I think has an opportunity as well. Before we move to the next future, we have a question here from Connor Porter. And here it is. What round are you comfortable drafting Godwin versus how early would you draft? And how early would you? I guess just how early are you comfortable drafting Godwin?
I'm probably, to answer that in one way, you could say I'm probably not comfortable drafting Chris Godwin right now because we still don't know how healthy he is. However, Godwin was a guy I was scooping up everywhere earlier this summer. Then I kind of as reports that the knee wasn't necessarily responding or whatnot. We just weren't hearing anything positive. He trickled down, but now he's been ahead of pace. All that said, I feel like as much as he's going to potentially be active, they don't necessarily need him to be, because they have Russell Gage, they have Julio Jones, they have Mike Evans. They've got a good system to get the ball to their running backs out in space and whatnot. So it feels like he might get brought along slowly, but that's a clearly immense fantasy upside for Chris Godwin. So I haven't looked at his latest ADP, but it feels like it's in that, I don't know, 50 to 60 range. So that, to me, if he's still there and you haven't filled out your wide receiver 4 yet, that feels like it would be a good spot, maybe in the late 5th to early 7th round, somewhere in that frame.
Yeah, I'm just not comfortable drafting him. It's just plain simple. He's on my fade list over at the
totally
Full-Time Fantasy. Again, there's a lot of people here. We still have Mike Evans. They went out and got Gage. They signed Julio. They don't have to rush him back. So, I mean, yes, he's ahead of the timeline, and the timeline is typically around 10 months for receivers. And inside the article at Full-Time Fantasy, if you head on over, I post an entire medical piece or linked to a medical piece, I should say, that they've done research for 5 years on NFL players and specifically the wide receiver position and how soon they're able to come back and at what percentage they're back at. And there's a lot of hurdles for him to overcome, especially, having surgery that late. And so I don't have a lot of confidence in Godwin this year. And if he was healthy, he's a top 12 receiver, top 10 receiver, like hands down. Mm-hmm. But the fact that there's the questions there, they have the offensive line now inside Tampa has some concerns with injuries. There's a lot of concerns. And Tom Brady has, he's the best ever to do it. And he's very quick at getting the ball out. So if there's that to kind of counteract my argument I just made about the offensive line as well. So there's a lot of moving pieces here, but I'm not comfortable driving Godwin. There's a saying, and I'm going to say it, I'm going to make him beat me in fantasy football this year. And there's a couple players this year that I'm going to make beat and that I don't own a lot of. When I say I don't own a lot, I own less than 3% across my entire portfolio, and Chris Godwin is inside that less than 3%. So I do not feel comfortable drafting Godwin. Next on the list is receptions. Who leads the league in receptions? Last year, Cooper Kupp was 145. I'm not going to go with Cooper Kupp because he's the chalk, but who's your most receptions here for wide receiver position?
If I'm actually walking to a booth and laying down a bet, it's going to probably be on Justin Jefferson. But for argument's sake, for the show, for entertainment value, let's go with a couple of wild cards. How about Michael Pittman or Allen Robinson, our boys?
Ooh, I like it. I like how I'm going to see Pittman is plus 2,000 on the odds. For me, it's Stephon Diggs. He's my wide receiver 2 this year. He is going to be plus 900, so he's tied for third inside this category as well. Just looking back, Diggs had 103 last year, 164 targets. I'm just very high on Diggs in this offense this year. So I think it's definitely within the realm of possibilities. How about receiving yards? Most receiving yards?
Jefferson.
Yeah, I think that's chalk. That's me as well.
It's almost like I'm just going to predict him to win the Triple Crown, to be honest with you here.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
Maybe we can come up with somebody off that, for touchdowns. What I believe Chase and Kupp last year, is that right? Had 16. I know Chase had 16. Did Kupp have 17?
For what's it, touchdowns?
Yeah, receiving touchdowns.
Oh man, top of my head. So we had Kupp at 16, Evans at 14, Chase at 13.
Oh, I said 16. Okay, so I was off.
Close enough. It's like horseshoes, right? Horseshoes and grenades. Not so much fantasy points.
Again, to jump to that, I won't. The way we're all predicting Justin Jefferson, he'll contend for a Triple Crown. But since he's never been a big touchdown guy in that area, and we still have the same quarterback in there, Jamar Chase, who 13 as a rookie is pretty impressive. So that number, and you can see Mike Evans doing it again. But I'll go with Chase.
So we have a new feature on the channel. I think this is a donation. I'm not 100% sure because we've never done this before. But if it is, Connor, thank you. I'm going to look into it. I have no idea, but we appreciate your support.
Ooh, yeah, thanks, buddy.
Next question is from David. Most overhyped player in fantasy right now?
Oh, overhyped. Billy, you have been on the ball with your fades. So
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna go with Godwin as an overhyped guy? Let me think for a second.
Yeah, I want to give it a second too because I think Godwin is definitely. It's. I don't want to hit the fade on the same list as the overhyped. So I think it's Javante for me. It is also on my fade list, but I
Javante Williams.
love. Yep, is I think one of the most overhyped players right now, and I think that he has the talent. So this is the thing: when I say I want to have a player beat me, I am scared to have Javante Williams beat me because he has all the talent in the world to do it, and I think if they committed to him, he could be next year's Jonathan Taylor. Right? I definitely think that's in the realm of possibilities for Javante Williams. On the flip side, Melvin Gordon has constantly been a go-to guy. He's also played in college with Russell Wilson. He's already familiar with the offense. We saw a damn near 50-50 split last year in this offense between Javante and Melvin Gordon. Now, I don't expect it this year, but I also don't expect a 70-30. So I think it's going to take a lot for Javante to be a top, 10 back. I think it's definitely real possibilities for him to be top 12, 15 back. But for him to be top 10, and like we saw in the beginning of drafts, he was going inside the top 7 in fantasy drafts. He was going as the 7th overall pick. I saw him go as the 3rd overall pick in early drafts. That's not the scenario anymore. He's now in the late 2nd, sometimes slips into the 3rd. I still think that late 2nd is a little high. There's other players I'd rather target, so I'm going to say Javante Williams is the most overhyped right now in fantasy football.
How about a guy just came to me that both of us have been fading all offseason? Cam Akers. I don't want anything to do with Cam Akers. I know. I feel like his ADP has actually slipped a little bit down to a more reasonable level, but still, to me, and this is money where my mouth is. I've seen him, in the 4th round where he could have potentially been my RB3, and I've passed on him to go with, a Michael Pittman or somebody like that. 4th round probably wouldn't get Pittman, but I've passed on Akers as an RB3 to get, a different wide receiver at that point. Very troubling lack of production, even all those touches he got in the playoffs. Now, I know in the playoffs you're playing good teams, but 2.2 yards per carry or whatever the average ended up. And then, Billy, you put into context very well in one of the articles you wrote about the recovery from, that injury, especially for a running back, and how Deontay Foreman is like the kind of the best case scenario. And this is the guy who's been, nothing but a bit player, and he's been solid, but he's not a guy that, with that kind of injury, standing up to a workload. And, again, Billy, you mentioned that you were pretty stoic and that you're convinced that Darrell Henderson is at least going to be the 3rd down back. And if that's the case where Akers isn't predominantly staying in on 3rd down, it's going to be really hard for him to deliver on his ADP of where he's being drafted if he's not getting those targets. And, in all reality, and this is something I've researched, Akers is bad in the red zone. And he hasn't really even gotten a lot of opportunities. He's been outplayed by every back from Malcolm Brown to Darrell Henderson to Sony Michel. Every other running back that's come in for the Rams over the last couple of years has been more effective in that area. And it's something that it looks like Sean McVay has actually picked up on. So you're talking about a guy who may not even get half the targets on his team out of that position. And if he's not going to be an effective short yardage runner, I don't see any way he can live up to his ADP.
Okay, we got, we're going to do one more futures, then we're going to take questions. So we have 2 questions sitting in the chat. We'll get to those in a second. If you are here and you have any more questions, throw them in the chat now. We'll get to them before we wrap up the show. But last future before we get to the question is Offensive Rookie of the Year. Who is your best pick?
It feels like the kind of thing that typically is going to go to a running back. But in this regard, Drake London should come in right away, and and on that offense, on that team, I mean, what's the assuming he stays healthy, which we always try to do. I mean, what's the floor on his targets? 120.
Yeah, I think I have him at 117 or 15. I have to double check, but
Yeah,
off the top of my head, that's about right.
Yeah, it feels about right. Even with the kind of an unpredictable quarterback situation. So There's probably some better ones out there, but off the top of my head, maybe Drake London feels like a pick.
Damn you stole mine. I got to think of something else now.
Sorry. You can pick the same guy. You don't have to necessarily, you don't have to necessarily go with somebody else.
I actually have a bet on Drake London because
Well,
Drake London's plus 1,400 on the books. So I love the juice for the squeeze as well.
How about Damian Pierce then? Can we go to him? Because now it looks like
Yeah.
he's got a clear path to 200 plus touches right away. Obviously we have concerns with Houston. Honestly, one of the concerns I don't have for the Texans, I don't feel the reputation of their offensive line is actually as bad as people say it is. A lot of the sacks that team has taken over the years was Deshaun Watson. Bad habit of holding on to the ball, trying to make big plays, trying to look downfield. I don't think Houston's offensive line is as bad as people, say it is. Now, the rest of the supporting cast, the rest of the issues on the team are certainly a concern. But okay, well, Billy, if you're going to go with Drake London, and Pierce just feels like now has gone from nice little sleeper late round guy that you and I thought we were being slick and taking Marlon Mack everywhere to
It happens.
Yeah. Hey,
so it's funny. Neither of us have mentioned the chalk on the board, and I don't know if it's because we wanted to avoid the chalk or if you just are tempering expectations. But what about Breece Hall?
Yeah, it's the talk that we're starting to see that the Jets, and this may just be complete coach speak, but that the Jets see it as a viable 50-50 split and whatnot. Michael Carter was not bad by any regards last year. For that team with that quarterback play, I thought Michael Carter was actually pretty solid. So I was actually surprised to see the Jets pull the trigger on Hall there at the top of the second round. But yeah, it makes sense. I think it feels like if you believe that Pierce maybe has a clearer path to more touches, but when it comes to pure three down ability, and the Jets actually have a pretty underrated offensive line. It's just their quarterback, big concern. I think right now, all of us probably think that Davis Mills right at this moment is probably a better quarterback than Zach Wilson. Doesn't mean Wilson can't resurrect his career, or that they can't put things together, but he's off to a pretty rocky start here this season with potentially setting out week one. So,
yeah, great third round pick by the Texans last year with Davis Mills. I think if Davis Mills was in this year's class, it's undebatable he'd probably be the first quarterback selected off the board. Well, let's move into the questions. We have a few questions in the chat. If you just joined us, this is your opportunity. Type in the questions. We're going to be answering questions here before we end the show. First question is, do you own Cade York in any of your leagues? I do, actually. I got desperate at kicker in a few early best ball leagues, and I had to throw in Cade York as a moonshot rookie pick in order to secure myself a kicker. I had to draft 2 rookie kickers, and York was one of them. So how about you, Joe? Do you own any Cade York?
No, I don't have a problem with kickers. They've always been a staple of my longtime league that we started in '91. So unfortunately, because I have Patrick Mahomes, I got Harrison Butker, but and almost every other league I'm in, kickers have basically been banished, and I'm not that anti-kicker guy. But the difference with them is again, concerns with quarterback. Is that offense going to be able to sustain drives? With Deshaun Watson, you feel pretty comfortable that that team's going to be able to score enough points. But with Jacoby Brissett, maybe it leads to more field goal opportunities than extra points. But he's not. He's he's probably not mid-tier of quarterback. Kickers around 15, 16, 18, 14, somewhere in there.
Okay, we have another question in here. Rank these tight ends. You have Gesicki, Fant, and Kmet. Best to worst.
Oh, come on now. This is Team Cole Kmet here.
Yeah. So let me rephrase the question. Rank these tight ends, Gesicki or Fant.
From fantasy perspective, this season, I think I still have Gesicki ranked above Fant, but I don't know that I want too many shares of Gesicki because now you're talking, where's the target's going to come from. But if I'm going to stay true to my rankings, I'll probably have Gesicki second in that group. Billy, I think you like Fant, right?
Yeah, I got Fant as number 2 in this division, so it's actually backwards from how it's written. I have Komet, Fant, and Jaceki in my rankings, but as we've said time and time again, that tight end 12 to tight end 20 is separated by like
You
3
give
fantasy points.
you give Cole Kmet last year 3 measly touchdowns from the 0 he scored. Give him just 3, and he scored the same fantasy points per game that Rob Gronkowski did. So that tells you, where we come across on Cole Kmet.
Yeah, and with the vacated targets and the shit that they drafted, and I should say lack of drafting, Komet has every opportunity to smash that projection. We have any more questions here? Go ahead and type them in the chat while we're here. We're nearing the end of the show. We want to make sure that you get your questions answered. Again, we want to thank Connor Porter for the donation to the show. Thanks for your support. And I want to thank.
Do you have drafts this weekend? Because I know this is the exciting draft weekend. I actually am. I have some ongoing, but I don't have any more drafts that actually kick off this weekend. I like to. From doing this basically, for a career now, it's like you guys don't even know how many hours I spent like on Tuesday updating, projections and depth charts. It was pretty awesome. I realized that, at one point, I think I texted you, Billy, it was close to 10 o'clock my time. And I was like, woo, I was trying to stay on top of everything. But I think it's really awesome that people can annually look forward to this final football-free weekend for the rest of this year and just throw a big barbecue together and just have a really fun live draft. And I think that would actually be that'd be really awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty packed over this weekend. I actually have nothing on Sunday because it's going to be a waiver day. I'm actually going through all the teams I've drafted up until this point.
It's the fact that you have to commit an entire day to that.
I have to commit an entire day every season. Usually Tuesdays I sit there and just hammer out waivers all day long. But because of all the drafts I've done up to this point, Sunday the 4th is an entire waiver day. I'm just going to sit there on the waivers probably for 10 hours and adjust all my early season because there's, some players that were missed and news that has definitely affected teams that you need to get some bids in. But I got one draft on Saturday, and then starting Labor Day on Monday the 5th, I have 3 drafts. I have I have 2 FFWC main events, and then I have a competitors draft as well. Then I have 2 more FFWC main event drafts on the 6th, and then I fly to Vegas there on Wednesday, doing a 1,000 auction league draft there with some friends, and then I have Friday in Vegas. I have 2 10Ks that day, so 2 10K leagues. I have the FFWC welcome party, and then after the welcome party, we watch the games, and then I have the invitationals. The FFWC invitationals, a $2,000 league, and these are all done with my draft partner Dave Hubbard. Shout out, Dave, love you, buddy.
All this, and you're talking about the kid that is the number 1 rated fantasy football draft ranker from last season. How do you do it, Billy?
Oh, a broken clock is right twice a day, Jody. So you have to say that
sleep for Billy in September is overrated.
I don't sleep much in September, and then in Vegas I probably won't be sleeping much because I'll be drafting 3 times a day.
I like that you said drafting instead of drinking.
It's definitely a lot of drafting. It's 3 drafts a day. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 3 drafts a day in Vegas. All high stakes. And then Sunday, so Saturday night. So like my last draft is Saturday, 7 p.m. Pacific time. We're gonna get over like 9. We're gonna hang out for a little bit. And I don't know what time I'm gonna go to bed. I don't know if I am gonna go to bed because we now have to set lineups for. I cut back this year, so it's gonna be about 75 managed leagues inside high stakes. So we have to.
That's your cutback number.
That's my cutback number. Yeah, it was like 125, 130 last year. So we have to set lineups and do waivers for all the other teams. And then so when I say do waivers, yes, I did them again on Sunday, but the way the high stakes leagues work, you get a free look at the Buffalo and Rams game. Okay. So if someone goes off or doesn't go off, you can adjust your lineup on Sunday after the fact because there's drafts on Fridays and Saturdays. We want to give everybody equal opportunity to start players from the Thursday night game, right? Otherwise, players would go super late because you don't have the ability to start them. And so they give everybody the ability to adjust their roster on Saturday night prior to the Sunday games to adjust your Thursday games if you want to start them or not start them. So if you have Josh Allen in and you had a second quarterback and he just, throws up a dud against the Rams, you can swap him out for another quarterback. So if nothing happens, I got a lot of maneuvering pieces on Saturday night for Sunday morning for the waiver wires that I have to go through and adjust. So again, got to go through them this Sunday, got to go through them next Saturday night. So it might be another 5-hour adventure after we get done drafting at 9 p.m. on Saturday in Vegas and sitting around, eating until 2 or 3 in the morning, adjusting lineups and then getting up and ready. Then from there, have to do the projections and the rankings for the Fantasy Pros contest. So
yeah, it'll all have been worth it, in just a few short months when we're in the into January. You'll look back and it'll all have been worth it.
Yeah. So very excited for the kickoff of the season. Sad to see draft season come to an end because for me that just means that waiver wire season is here.
Now the real work comes in.
And that's the part I like dread the most of fantasy is waiver wires because it's a full-time job. Connor has a draft here on Monday. Good luck, Connor. If you have any questions, join our Discord over at Full Time Fantasy. You can shoot questions to Jody and I'd be happy to answer any of those prior to your draft. And welcome, Retros. Glad you made it. Better late than never. And I think that's it, folks. That is the last podcast for the week. Don't know if I'm going to be able to get one in next week, Jody, with the drafts while I'm in Vegas. But if we can, we could try to squeeze one in. But no promises here because there's a full week next week. Like I said, I got 3, 6, 9. I got about 20 drafts next week. So it's a lot to do and not sure I'm going to be able to squeeze in a podcast. But we will try our best. We're going to be here for you on Twitter. We'll be here for you on Discord. Shoot us any DMs. Shoot us any messages on Discord. Be happy to get those answered. We'll see you all here shortly. Good luck in your fantasy drafts this weekend. And good night. And week 1 is around the corner. Take care, everybody.